Monday edition, Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Hope everybody had a great weekend. With me, as always, the great producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn, who we'll get to in a minute. Plenty to get into as the Final Four on the men's side is set. The women's side will be set after tonight. A couple of big games on the ESPN network, on ESPN, in fact, including the rematch of the national title game from last year. Iowa and LSU go toe-to-toe tonight on ESPN. Looking forward to that one. I think it's the biggest college basketball game of either side, men or women's, of the season. So I think we're going to have an instant classic tonight in that one. I want to talk Packers a little bit. Jason Wilde and Gary Ellerson, a really interesting conversation this morning on Wilde and Tausch about the Packers wide receiver room. I more want to talk about the offense overall because we reacted to something on Friday from Get Up, where Mike Tannenbaum essentially said he would take Jordan Love and the pieces around him as a top 2 or 3 quarterback over the course of the next couple of seasons. So over the weekend, I was thinking about, how good can this offense be? I was a little Debbie Downerish on Friday. I think I'm going to be more optimistic Oliver on Monday. So we'll get into that in a bit. Brewers are on pace to go 162-0. Unfortunately, though, the Christian Yelich 162-game hitting streak is over. Hunter, I'm very disappointed to report that.
Oh man!
Yeah, didn't get a hit yesterday in the third win in a row, 4-1 win over the Mets yesterday. So Christian Yelich will not be having a 162-game hit streak, but the Brewers could still go 162-0. The home opener tomorrow after a day off today against the Minnesota Twins. But let's start with Hunter. Let's start with the in-state news from Friday, as Marquette shoots 4 of 31 from outside and loses by 9 to now Final Four team, 11th seeded NC State, DJ Burns Jr. and company, Michael O'Connell, as they upset Marquette, 13-point lead at the half. When Marquette trails by 10 points in the half, they've only won 1 game this year. That remains the case as they fall in the Sweet 16 Friday to NC State. Hunter, I called you pessimistic. I called you a doomsday fan. I said you're too negative. I said I thought they would win pretty easily. Boy, was I wrong.
Well, if you go off of their open shots and what they're expected to make on wide open shots, they should have won by 15. I saw a stat after the game that this season in college basketball, there's been just over 1,100 times that a team has attempted more than 33s in a game.
Okay.
Marquette had the second worst three-point shooting percentage of any of those teams.
Wow.
Literally, if they just, instead of making 4, they make 8 threes, they win the game. And it's a completely different game. Like, that's just, it was such an insane night of watching that team that, like, I didn't think it was real life. Like, I disassociated by the end of the game because I'm like, there's no way that they can, like, keep missing these shots. And it wasn't even like they're airballing everything.
Think it was real life.
Like, I honestly didn't. Because it was just everything would hit the rim and it would rattle out. It would look like it's going to go in and then it would just bounce out.
Yeah, it was a pretty, Hunter. I'll tell you that.
I don't know how David Joplin stayed on the floor.
Yeah, you were texting me. You were very angry about David Joplin.
He went 0 of 7 from 3. Like, you start out 0 for 4. Maybe don't take those last 3 shots and try and drive. Get something. Just do something else.
4 of 31 from outside. That's a 12.9% clip. The Golden Eagles shot from outside. Cam Jones hit 3 of those 4. Tyler Kolek hit the other. 2 guys hit a 3. Pretty much everybody that touched the floor other than Oso Iguodaro attempted at least 1 3. Ben Gold shot 1. Chase Ross 2 off the bench. Stevie Mitchell 4. David Joplin over 7, as he mentioned. Kolek 1 for 5, and Cam Jones 3 for 12. So just a 25% clip for him as well. Yeah, it was a disaster from outside. They couldn't throw a ball into the ocean on Friday night. So that was tough for Marquette. Tyler Kolek goes out, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists in his final game with Marquette.
I'm going to miss him so much.
Yeah, he's a great player.
Great player. And it was just like seeing the video of him walking into the locker room. And he had his ripped jersey.
Yeah, I saw he ripped it out of frustration. That's kind of a badass move. I kind of like that.
But it wasn't even like he just did it in one move. Like, he was literally just like grabbing it and just needed to do something. And then all of a sudden it just tore. Like, because he was just that frustrated for so long that eventually it just tore his jersey. And I also don't like let's stick cameras in these guys' faces like right away. Like I've started to. It's just like there's literally video of Iguodaro just in tears and he can barely get words out still.
Yeah, but it gives you the emotion, bro.
I know, but I think we need to
up the story.
We need to stretch that time out a little bit more. Like give them a little bit more time to like register it in the locker room and like clean themselves up like before then making them go and sit and answer questions about just an obscene game like that. Oh, and you have no lights on.
What just happened? Why did the lights just turn off? Is this power activated?
I don't know.
What's going on around here? We've got a switch. Is it going to turn on? There we go.
Hey, the lights are back on.
What the hell was that?
I don't know. That's weird because you're moving around too. Somebody's messing with you, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was good. That was something. That's never happened before. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I wish that they would extend that timeout. Like, I prefer the way the NBA does it, where it's like, okay, you have your time, they get a chance to shower, clean up, change, and then they go over and they talk to the press. Like, it just gives them a better opportunity to just have a level of clarity. Because it's like you're not getting anything out of the guy other than a video of him crying in front of a locker. Like, you could at least get something of substance.
You have some really weird gripes.
No, it was something that I noticed in the moment, and I'm like, I wish we didn't do it this way.
We do it for every team, Hunter.
Yes, and I don't like it for every team. But we're talking about Marquette, and this is what spurred. I've had this thought for a while. I didn't enjoy when I was an intern for ESPN Milwaukee having to go down into the clubhouse after Brett Suter just destroys his shoulder in a game, and he's almost in tears because they lost to the Dodgers in a regular season game, and he feels like he's the reason why because he tried to battle through some pain in his shoulder. Like, that wasn't enjoyable. I didn't like that. I don't like the way that they do that.
But you got to hear from the people.
Yes.
You can't not talk to them.
No, I'm not saying not talk to them. I'm saying give them a little bit of time.
So tell TV reporters to miss their deadlines?
You can move the deadlines. You'll be okay.
Well, that's not how it works at all. Deadlines don't get moved, but yeah, okay.
Well, literally the system can move their deadline, but then you can also still report on the game, and you don't need video of a 24-year-old crying through trying to answer questions.
So NC State over Marquette. NC State goes on to beat Duke, an ACC matchup. First time those two teams matched up in the NCAA tournament. 12-point win for NC State. They move on to the Final Four as an 11 seed. They've won a ton of games in a row now after winning the ACC tournament. Now, obviously, winning the region in the NCAA tournament. I just want to pat myself on the back, Hunter, briefly. Hopefully I don't Brett Suter myself when I pat myself on the back here. Is that too soon? Is that inappropriate?
A little bit.
March 23rd, that's last Saturday, I tweeted, DJ Burns Jr. should get a phone call from an NFL team. We need him and Edey in the Final Four. Both of those things are now happening. So the headlines today from NBC Sports, DJ Burns Jr. of North Carolina State is getting interest from NFL teams. Although his dream is to play in the NBA, he is receiving interest from NFL teams. And we will get the 6'9", 280-pound DJ Burns Jr. versus the 7'4" freak of nature Zach Edey. Now, we'll talk about Iowa and LSU on the women's side because I think that is the most interesting, most fun, most important college basketball game of this season and of either of these tournaments coming up tonight. But this matchup is maybe the most, because you could make the case, obviously, Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, right? Kim Mulkey and LSU versus Iowa, rematch of the national championship game. Those are some fun matchups. But in terms of March hero in DJ Burns Jr., and pretty much the anti-hero of college basketball in Zach Edey, like two very different dominant post players, I'm so excited to see these two just bully each other on Saturday in the Final Four. That is going to be such a ridiculously college basketball matchup. Like, it just epitomizes what March Madness is and what college basketball is, as Zach Edey and DJ Burns just going to body each other for 40 minutes. I want both of them touching the ball every possession. I want... Now, the thing with DJ Burns is you could tell he gets winded. So he won't play the full 40, where Edey realistically probably will play 38 to 40 minutes. Burns will probably be closer to 32 minutes, I think, about what he played yesterday against Duke. Every time those two are on the floor together, they need offensive touches.
They'll get them.
And you're right. I think they will.
This is going to feel like an old 1980s style basketball game.
Yeah.
You're going to get paint touches every single time down the floor. It's going to be so fun to watch. Someone's going to leave that game with a black eye, too, which is just great. As much as I love the up and down, we're going to shoot a bunch of threes, and the way that basketball is now, I enjoy watching scoring. But every now and again, I can appreciate, a Big Ten West style football game, or in this case, an old school style basketball game.
A Big Ten West style football game. I mean, that might be kind of how you define this matchup.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
It's a Big Ten West football game. You just got the big guys going to town in the paint and just beating each other up. So I'm excited about that matchup. UConn's not losing to anybody. That's my other takeaway of the Final Four.
You don't think Purdue can beat them?
No.
With Edey inside, being able to play against that post presence that UConn has?
They can make it closer than other teams have, which every team has failed to make it close against UConn. They've won every game by, it feels like, 1,000,000 points.
They were talking about it in UConn's Elite Eight game about how Dan Hurley they were asking him about how they don't play well in close games. The few tight games that they've had this year have not gone well for them. So they were just we're just going to blow teams out instead. Fine. We just won't play in close games. And obviously Dan Hurley was joking, but it's ridiculous to see a team go this deep and dominate. You usually will see 1 seeds and 2 seeds, they're going to win by 20, sometimes 30 points in the first round. Sometimes the second round you can see that. But Sweet 16 and Elite 8, winning by double digits, that's insane. That does not happen.
It was a very close game at halftime, and they just continue a run they had at the end of the first half. 30-0 run in the Elite Eight for
UConn. It's just
UConn.
mean.
It's just absurd. I've never seen a 30-0 run, let alone in the Elite Eight. I mean, and if I have, it's been regular season mid-major versus a powerhouse. A 30-0 run is disrespectful. And UConn just, for an Illinois team, by the way, which looked very good, and I honestly thought they would give UConn their best test yet, and it seemed like they did. But UConn's not getting touched. They're going back-to-back. It's a foregone conclusion to me. After watching what they did to Illinois, I just don't see how any team is going to compete with Connecticut. They are, and we've said it all year long in the show, Hunter, right? It's UConn and it's everybody else. It's just a little bit disappointing to me how anticlimactic this tournament has been in terms of that result. Getting an 11 seed to the Final Four is really fun in NC State, and DJ Burns and having a March hero, right? DJ Burns has become the face of March Madness in a sense this go-round. Purdue finally getting over the hump. I've always said I like Matt Painter. I think he's a really funny dude. I think his press conferences are hilarious. He's a unique cat, and I like him a lot. And then Alabama, it's a fun story. Nate Oates, good head coach. Alabama's a team where I thought they would get there each of the last several years. It just seemed like the year I didn't think they were going to get there, they got there. So I think they're almost doing it to spite me for not picking them again, because I'm pretty sure, Hunter, I've picked Alabama in the Final Four each of the last 3 years. Well, and they just haven't gotten there.
I mean, those last few years for Bama, you should have.
Yeah,
because they were
really
better
good.
teams,
Yeah.
it felt like. Purdue, they're one of the Big Ten teams where I'm just kind of okay, fine, whatever. I don't dislike you guys, but it's cool, you got over the hump, great. And I'm still bitter at NC State because I felt like in the Elite Eight game last night, Marquette should have been there, and I will go to my grave saying that they should have been in that game. And then this UConn team, it's one thing compared to the Florida team in 06 and then in 07 that went back-to-back,
yep.
because you felt like Greg Oden and Mike Conley for Ohio State could put up a fight if those two saw each other in the finals. You felt like there were other teams that could do it.
I don't feel that way about Purdue or NC State,
Yeah,
and
no.
I don't think Alabama's beating them.
No.
Listen to this. So 4 games in the books now for UConn in the NCAA tournament. They beat, and it's a 16 seed. It's Stetson. What are they? The Hatters, I think you said?
Yes, the Hatters.
They beat them by 39 in the opening round. Okay, not too shabby. Northwestern, a team that was pretty solid in Big Ten play as a 9 seed.
Beat Purdue in Evanston.
Right.
So, a good team.
27-point win over Northwestern in the second round.
Ugh.
Sweet 16, a rematch of last year's national championship game. And I would like to know, just for whatever reason, when the last time the national championship game was repeated prior to the Final Four of the championship game in both NCAA tournaments. This has to be one of the first times ever.
I don't even know how to even try and look that up, to be honest.
I don't either. But anyway, San Diego State, who was the national runner-up last year, lost to UConn. They played them in the Sweet 16 this past week, and San Diego State looked really good heading into that game. They lose by 30. 30-point win for UConn over the 5-seed San Diego State, and then they beat Illinois by 25. They've won every game by 25 points or more in the NCAA tournament. Nobody's touching them. I saw a comment come on, I can't even read it from here, something fight basketball on TikTok. UConn is not making the national championship game. I would put a lot of money that says they will.
Yeah, I'd be willing to drive down to Illinois and put a bet on that.
Yeah, me too. And you're not going to get good odds because Connecticut is just dominant. Everybody else is fine. Everybody else is playing good basketball. If you're still alive this time of year, obviously you're playing very good basketball. But nobody's touching Connecticut. And that's the anticlimactic side of this NCAA tournament. But if you have UConn in an 11 seed in the championship game, at least they had a fun story on the other side. And DJ Burns Jr. is a hero now. So it's fun. UConn, Bama, Purdue, NC State. That's your Final Four coming up on Saturday. We'll talk more about that coming up on Friday. MLB season is here. And boy, is it here for the young guns, for the fired up, for the energetic. The polarizing, maybe some would argue. Milwaukee Brewers, 3-0 sweep of the New York Mets. It's the Mets. I'm not gonna sit here and act like they're winning the World Series this year, the Brewers or the Mets. But it's still impressive. They're one of 4 teams that are still undefeated as it sits at 12:47 here on Monday afternoon. 4-1, 7-6, 3-1 the wins for the Brewers over the weekend. 3-0. To start the year. They go into their home opener tomorrow against the Minnesota Twins with an undefeated record. It's a good start. The other thing, though, is they're not even the only team in the NL Central with that going on right now. The Pittsburgh Pirates, also 4-0. But I'm really intrigued by this Brewers team, Hunter. And I know we talked about it on opening day on Friday. But this is a really fun squad for a number of reasons, right? Like you've got the youth. Jackson Chourio started all 3 games in right field. He's 5 of 12. It's his first 12 at-bats in the MLB. It was his first opening day, obviously, but it was also his first MLB debut on Friday. And he was viewed as such a generational prospect for this Brewers team. He's proving it through the first series here in what month is it now? April? Technically March, though, when those games were played. Happy April, by the way. April Fool's Day. I'm not going to pull a prank on you or anything.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are you anti-April Fool's Day?
I'm just not a big prank guy.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Yeah, I almost got by a tweet that said that Tyler Kolek was going to come back, and I almost started to tear up, and then I realized what day it was.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Jackson Chourio, right? Like just some of the youth on this team. Bryce Terang, Sal Frelick, who you know, Hunter, is my favorite player. I call him Salvatore. I love that guy. I just think he's a badass. But then you add a guy like Rhys Hoskins, who, after our show on Friday, slid into second base against Jeff McNeil. And, well, McNeil didn't love that so much. But Hoskins called out, goes back to the dugout. They're just chirping at each other nonstop. And then Hoskins gives him one of these, calls him a crybaby. And McNeil is crying to the Mets' first 0-3 start since 2014. So, good stuff. I'm really enjoying this team. Now, the pitching, as we talked about on Friday, Hunter, does concern me a little bit just because it feels like you're shorthanded. It didn't it didn't bite you at all in that opening series. Freddie Peralta was really solid in the opener. Colin Ray was good yesterday. DL Hall was good on Saturday. And nothing to complain about. Colin Ray and Peralta both got the wins, and then obviously DL Hall not quite the win because that game was tied by the time he got pulled. Or they may have even been trailing in that one on Saturday when he was pulled. But nonetheless, good start to the season. 3-0 is as good as you can ask for. The Brewers are doing that. I don't know that my expectation season-long changes a ton based off one series, though. I still think this is somewhere between an 80 and 90-win team. Probably a wild card team, and that's probably it. But maybe, hopefully, once Devin Williams returns to the bullpen, you're in better shape and you're feeling good about this team's chances down the stretch. But I feel like the young energy, it's almost Packers-esque, right? Like the Packers go to that youth movement a year ago. Nobody really has high expectations, and they blow the roof off expectations. Kind of feels like maybe that's the Brewers' approach here in 2024, and so far so good at 3-0.
Yeah, the one thing, and I'm not trying to be doomsday with this,
Hunter.
No, hear me out here.
Okay.
So I listened to a couple of different podcasts, and one of them has a number of times had some different former Major League Baseball players on. And one of the things that they've talked about is if you come in and you have success early on in the majors, how do you respond then when you go through a slump in like June or July? And how do you handle, okay, I've gone a week and a half and I've only got like one hit and it was barely anything. So with this team being so young, it's awesome that they're having success early. I just want to see them handle adversity.
Think back to June of last year when they got swept by the Athletics, who had won like 9 games at the time, right? Mm-hmm. That started kind of a rocky June, but they were ultimately able to rebound a little bit towards the end of the season. So you're right, and that's not an answer I can give you right now on April 1st.
No, I just think that's where we should be looking, is like what happens with this team when they do run into some adversity? What happens to Churio when he does realize, like, oh, pitchers have figured me out. They realize that, change up, down, and away is a pitch I struggle with, and that's all I'm seeing now. How do I adjust, or how do I avoid from seeing that pitch because I'm doing other things earlier in an at-bat better so they're not in a spot where they can just go at my weakness? That's the stuff that is going to be really interesting, and this is why I love baseball so much, because it's those little things that you can look at to try and see, okay, how are these guys doing? I'm super excited about this team. I love what I saw early, especially considering we didn't have many 3-pitch taking strikeouts like certain Jesse Winker did in the playoffs.
Yeah, you're still not over that.
Nope, never will be.
No.
So it was a lot of 4, 5, 6-pitch at-bats, which I love. Yeah. So I really like what I'm seeing early. I want to know what happens when things don't go well for them.
Just to go back, sorry, I just looked this up, and thanks to Craig on the Facebook, watching with us on Facebook, the ESPN Madison Facebook page. He said it's minus 750 for Connecticut against Alabama. I've got over at ESPN Bet right now, UConn minus 800, meaning you'd have to bet $800 to win 100 if Connecticut wins in the Final Four against Alabama.
It's not worth it.
It's just not fair. It's just not fair. Just not fair. All right, Brewers home opener tomorrow. I'll be there. Looking forward to talking more about it on Wednesday as they take on the border battle, Minnesota Twins in town. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the Packers because we let's play this clip against Hunter, if you don't mind, from Mike Tannenbaum on Get Up I think this was last Friday morning. We talked about this a little bit on Friday, and I said, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's rehash this clip, and then I'll give you the optimistic spin on how I'm feeling after taking the weekend. And as they always do, Hunter, the Packers occupying 95% of my brain over the weekend because they just live there rent-free. I'm always thinking about the Packers. But I want to know how good the Packers offense can be this upcoming season as everybody takes that next step. Obviously, year 2 for Jordan Love as a starter, year 2 for guys like Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave in the league, and year 3 for Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, year 1 for Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, and probably some changes on the offensive line. Here's Mike Tannenbaum Friday on Get Up on ESPN.
Greedy, I wouldn't let him leave the facility after that last playoff loss to San Francisco. I would have got an agreement done. I would have dated it after mid-May, and I would have gotten him done because the market's only going to go up. And if we were building a team in the NFL and you were drafting players today, we would all start with Patrick Mahomes. But after that, Jordan Love's in the conversation of who do you want to build around for the next 10 years. He's that good, that talented. And when you look at the depth of the skill players that the Packers have, from Dobbs to Watson to Jaden Reed, 2 tight ends, they just got Josh Jacobs. They're going to draft a left tackle this year. Greedy, he is positioned to be one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in our sport for a long time.
He is positioned to be one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in our sport for a long time, says Mike Tannenbaum, the former Jets general manager, on Get Up on ESPN this past week. I told you Friday, whoa, I'm as high on Love as anybody. I've got a Jordan Love jersey sitting on my desk here at the Everlight Solar Studio. Like, I'm all in on Jordan Love. But 2 or 3 best? What about Burrow? What about Herbert? What about Allen? What about Jackson? And obviously I'm leaving out Mahomes on purpose because he's number 1 and nobody's going to argue with me. If you want to argue about Mahomes not being the best quarterback in the league, you can go argue with a brick wall. That argument will go a hell of a lot better for you. After that, though, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, Jackson, Stroud may be in the conversation. Can Trevor Lawrence have a resurgence? In the NFC, Do we know what Jalen Hurts is yet? I don't think we have a great idea of what Jalen Hurts is yet. Jared Goff's been playing really good football. What's Caleb Williams going to be? And obviously, Jordan Love. What happens with Jordan Love, and what does he become? I'm incredibly intrigued to see that, because I think we have a decent enough sample size coming off the Brewers conversation where we don't have a very big sample size. But with Jordan Love, we have a full season now, right? We have a full season plus 2 playoff games. And I think what I can say confidently about Jordan Love right now is he's a darn good quarterback. He's good enough to be a franchise quarterback. I don't know how good he can be, but I know he can be good. And I think he proved that last year. And now, to Mike Tannenbaum's point, he didn't really follow the question. The question was, who are you starting a franchise with? Tannenbaum took everybody around him and used that as the argument, which is fine, because that's the realism part of this debate. The young receivers, the young tight ends, Josh Jacobs, one of the best backs in the league, is a recipe for success. It's almost taking it from the San Francisco school of thought, right? Draft well at the skill positions, develop well, put some good pieces on your offensive line. Your quarterback shouldn't have to do a ton in order for you to win games. And obviously have a good defense, which the Packers have invested a ton in the draft, and now bring in a new D coordinator. Hopefully that that side of the ball is top half of the league, and you're probably in really good shape in the NFC. How good can the Packers offense be in 2024, knowing what we know now? So let's just run through the names again. Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. Those are your skill position guys you should really worry about. I apologize to Bo Melton. I didn't say Bo Melton's name. I'm sorry,
How
Bo.
dare you?
my bad, Bo. That's on me. So, look, Hunter, I said let's pump the brakes on Jordan Love, but when it comes to this Packers offense, which, by the way, is called by one of the league's best offensive minds, Matt LaFleur, I firmly believe this can be a top 5 offense in the NFL when it comes to points per game, when it comes to whatever metric you want to use. I think this can be a top 5 offense in the NFL this year, bar none, assuming health to the most important piece to that, and that is Jordan Love. Assuming he is healthy for all 17, I think this can be a top 5 offense, and I think this will be a year where we go, okay, we get why they paid him all that money. We get why last year's playoff run wasn't a fluke for Green Bay. I firmly believe this could be a top 5 offense in the league. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think you are at all, and it especially helps for them that they're going to get 2 games against the Vikings, and they're going to get 2 games against a Bears defense that needs to figure things out. So those 4 games definitely help that. I think one of the things you might see out of this team is none of the receivers get over 1,000 yards. And that's not because the offense is bad, but there's just so many guys where it's kind of one of those where it's like, okay, Jaden Reed goes off, then Christian Watson has a game, and then Bo Melton has like a game or 2. And it's just one of those things where it's like you don't know who to defend. So the defense is just kind of like, okay, maybe we can bend, don't break, maybe force them to some field goals, and hopefully we can stay in this game kind of a thing and just see what happens. All I know is I don't want to see the Packers. As a Cowboys fan, I don't want to see them. We're only into April, and I'm already thinking I don't want to see them in the playoffs.
No,
I don't want to deal with it unless they have like a major injury, and I hope that they don't, because I don't wish that on any team.
Right.
I don't want to see this Packers team, and as long as the defense is solid, this should be a looking at NFC Championship level team.
I love hearing you say that as a Cowboys fan, because obviously I've got my biases, right? Like, I'll be the first to admit it.
No,
I wear the green and gold colored glasses all the time. I get that. But when you look at what this team was able to do down the stretch this past season, it's hard not to think, hey, if they can do that consistently, they should be, to your point, an NFC Championship level team. Because it feels like they're trending that way. And it's just funny to think about on April 1st of this year that we're having this conversation when April 1st of last year, we're like, who the hell is going to play wide receiver? Who the hell is going to play wide receiver? Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, great, but how good are those guys? Who's going to play tight end? We don't have a tight end on the roster except Josiah the Messiah DeGuara, right? Like, it's just funny how a year apart, how different the conversation we're having is based on the Packers' skill positions offensively. Because a year ago, I had no faith. But a year ago, or a year later, I'm sitting here considering getting a hashtag in Goody We Trust tattoo because he's been that impressive over the course of the last 366 days, technically. I'm so impressed with the roster construction and the way the youth movement worked. But for a team that was 9-8 and had a really crappy stretch in that month of October, let's just say the Packers go 2-2 over a 4-game stretch rather than 0-4. You're looking at an 11-win team a year ago. So sitting here right now, I don't think it's impossible. We looked at the lines last week because ESPN Bet came out with them when I was filling out on Rutledge and Hamilton weekdays 4 to 6 on ESPN Madison. The Packers are over/under line on ESPN Bet for wins is 9.5. Hunter, 9.5. So they need to go 10-7 or better in order for the over to hit on that bet. It's a good line. 9.5 is not a small number. They've obviously won less than that each of the last 2 seasons, but it feels like this team is constructed to win more than 9.5 games. It just feels like this is a double-digit win team without a doubt. I'm not saying that wins them the NFC North because I think Detroit's going to be in the mix. And shoot, I hate to say it out loud, but I think Chicago is going to be in the mix too.
And that's why I think that number is at 9.5. I remember, I think KBN, they were very surprised by that number as well when that came out. And I think it's because Vegas really believes in what the Bears are doing, and they think that Caleb Williams is going to be a significant upgrade over Justin Fields. So that really sways things when you start looking at that. But I just have this weird feeling that when we get the full schedule release for the Packers, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to rattle off multiple 6+ game, or not multiple, but 2 6+ game winning streaks in the season. I have a weird feeling
that again?
They're going to have 2 6+ game winning streaks because I just have this
Do you
weird
think
feeling.
It's a 14-win team?
I think they could be. Now, it depends on the way that schedule gets laid out. But I just have this weird feeling that they're going to, one, like they've been talking about on Wilde and Tausch, they're going to get that week 1 game down in Brazil. So it's going to be a neutral site against the Eagles. So they don't have to go to Philly in December to play a road game against them. So that's going to help them get a win week 1. And then I just have a feeling that it's going to lay out well enough for them where all of a sudden they're sitting at like a 6-0. They'll drop a game, they'll win 1 or 2, and then they'll lose another one. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they're going to go on a win streak to end the season. It's going to be that type of a year for them as long as the NFL is nice to them with their schedule, which for where they finished on the year, there's a real chance that they will be. I just have a hard time finding any weakness with this team other than what we talked about just now with the Brewers being these are still young guys. So how do they handle adversity or things not going well again? They did it well this last year, but the mark of excellent teams and top-level teams are, okay, you're going to see adversity every year. How do you handle it every single year?
I love your positivity and optimism on the Packers because for a Cowboys fan, I appreciate you not being a dick about it because you clearly could be, right? Like, obviously.
Yeah, I could pick apart little things with this team and, like, the O-line has some question marks, but I'm not going to do that because it's weird and I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue.
I'm talking myself into, and we got to get into some draft coverage here with it coming up in a couple weeks because I'm going to put my cards on the table here, peek behind the curtain. I learn about the draft through creating content, right? Like, I'm not a draft expert. I'm not a huge college football guy. You're much bigger there than I am. So I need to talk to people a hell of a lot smarter than me, which also not a very high bar, about what the Packers are going to do or how they think or how they operate when it comes to draft day. But I think I'm talking myself into the Packers drafting an offensive lineman in the first round, which they have not done since Derek Sherrod, if I'm not mistaken, in 2011. Oof. In the year prior, they did it with Brian Bulaga. They went back-to-back in 2010 and 2011, and the only offensive player they've picked in the first round since then is
Jordan Love.
That is correct. All defense since 2011, other than Jordan Love in 2020. So, but I am talking myself into an offensive lineman because I think Goody understands he did so damn well at the skill positions offensively. They put a ton of investment in defensively. There's not a super sexy name at safety other than Cooper DeJean in the first round. That wouldn't be there with your 2 picks in the second round. I'm talking myself into an offensive lineman, and I would be very happy with that, I think, because I'm not in love with the Packers' interior offensive line, and I don't think the Packers are in love with Rasheed Walker as their left tackle. I think you've got 2 positions totally figured out. That's left guard, Elton Jenkins, and that's right tackle is Zach Tom. I don't think you're married to Josh Myers at center, You don't really even have a right guard right now, as John Runyon Jr. goes elsewhere. And then at left tackle, obviously, Rasheed Walker's there. He was serviceable. He was good in place of David Bakhtiari last year. But are you completely in love with him there? I don't know. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go guard, center, or tackle in the first round.
The tough thing for the Packers is going to be that a lot of their needs are the same needs that the team picking one spot ahead of them is, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. Like they could they could go center, they could go guard to move Smith out to tackle. Then they could go safety. Like that's going to be very interesting to see, and it may lead to one of those two teams overpaying to jump up a little bit to keep the other one from taking a guy that they love. I love the draft. I'm so excited about that. Whenever we want to do that, you just give me plenty of heads up, which you don't always do on things,
You're right.
And I will be ready.
Fantastic. Good stuff. I really do think the Packers can graduate into elite territory offensively in 2024. I'm talking myself into that, and I'm also talking myself into drafting offense in the first round, which I know Goody has not done outside of Jordan Love. And shoot, the Packers never do that outside of quarterbacks or O-linemen. They never go skill position. They haven't since Javon Walker, if we're not counting the quarterbacks, in 2002. And since then, there's been 4 offensive picks, and it's Aaron Rodgers in 05, Brian Bulaga in 10, Derek Sherrod in 11, Love in 20, which timing tells me it's probably time to go offensive line in the first round because that Brian Bulaga pick ended up working out all right for you. Pretty darn good player.
Yeah, he was all right.
Pretty darn good player for the Packers during his time. Obviously, friend of the show, Brian Bulaga. So I'm intrigued to see what goes on from here. I just got called Mad Handsome in our TikTok live chat. Somebody said, this dude has a great face for radio. Kidding. He's Mad Handsome, TBH. I appreciate you. I think you're handsome as well. That threw me off, though. I'm not going to lie to you.
You don't get many compliments around here. So.
No, people, when it comes to comments on our show, I'm usually called an idiot, which I'm fine with, right? Like, I'm never right. But when I'm right, I'm going to tell you, just like I did about DJ Burns going to the NFL and playing Zach Edey in the Final Four, and just like I did about the Bucks going on a big winning streak coming out of the All-Star break. When I'm right, I'll let you know. Doesn't happen very often. But I know a thing or two occasionally, and I agree with that comment. I am Mad Handsome. All right, let's talk more college basketball. On the women's side, though, dude, we talked about it right when the brackets came out. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been off the air, this conversation we had, Hunter. But we talked about the buzz for the women's tournament, how it felt just a little bit bigger than the men's tournament. And now that we're down to the nitty-gritty, it seems like in the men's side, it's all UConn, right? And on the women's side, you could make that case for South Carolina. They feel dominant, but they haven't been as dominant in tournament play as UConn has been. South Carolina hasn't been. But you've got 2 crazy good games tonight on ESPN, which includes the rematch of last year's national championship game. Top-seeded Iowa in Regional 2 takes on 3-seeded and the reigning national champs LSU. LSU, down in the regular season, still a completely outrageously good team. And I'm really excited for this one because, of course, you have the rematch of the trash talking. If you're watching on our video stream on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, you see it on the bottom right corner. Angel Reese pointing to the finger. Ring me. Caitlin Clark doing the John Cena. You can't see me. I almost wore my Cena shirt today to show some support. This matchup is going to be so darn fun. It could be Caitlin Clark's last collegiate game, and then she'll go be the number 1 pick in the WNBA to the Indiana Fever. Or it could be kind of the end of the road for some of these LSU players. And you've got the villain on LSU, who we talked about last week, who I don't want to sue me, Kim Mulkey, the head coach, who goes after the Washington Post about an article. I don't believe they have released that yet.
They did, and it was just kind of everything we kind of expect.
Just like culture?
Yeah, it's just the culture. She's an incredibly intense person. If you can't tell from the picture on the video stream of her, yeah. I tried to find a kind of normal-looking one. I wanted to be respectful. And she wears flashy stuff. She's loud. She is in your face, and she then carries that into practices. So it's kind of everything that you would expect when it comes to that article. But this is such an exciting game, just from the sense of, like you've already talked about, you have everything from storylines within it. You've got all of the history between these two teams. You have history with Caitlin Clark and Haley Van Lith on LSU.
Yeah, coming from Louisville.
And
right.
Yeah, and then it's just going to be probably I would say the second and third best team in the country after South Carolina right now. and they're going at it in an Elite Eight, which is weird that it's going to be the Elite Eight. I wish this was Final Four.
For sure.
But
For sure.
I'm going to take it, and I'm going to have to be watching this on my phone while I'm watching the Wisconsin women's basketball
That's right.
team.
You're going to the WNIT. Is it grade 8 tonight?
Grade 8 tonight.
And they host who? St. Louis?
St. Louis, the Billikens.
Okay,
but
I like that.
I'm gonna keep my eyes on this game while I'm at another awesome game. Like I always hate it when I like make plans and then all of a sudden realize like, oh, wait a second, I wanted to watch that, and I'm gonna be tuned into this game while I'm at another game.
Yeah, it's hard not to be. Money line is even. Iowa's technically favored by 1.5, but if you bet LSU, the money line is even. Minus 100, plus 100, however you want to view it. So Vegas has no idea how to handle this. According to ESPN Analytics matchup predictor, Hunter, do the math in your head with me. Are you ready? It says LSU has a 50.0% chance to win this game. 50.0.
Oh.
Which, if you did correct math, that would mean Iowa has what?
50.0.
But according to ESPN Analytics, Iowa has a 50.1% chance to win this game. I'm looking at it on my laptop right here. 50.0 to 50.1. That's on the matchup predictor.
That's wild.
Yeah, it sure is. So 100.1% chance this game does happen, though, and it will happen on ESPN. Tip-off at 6 o'clock. Iowa favored by 1.5 points. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Haley Van Lith, Kim Mulkey. I mean, the list goes on and on of reasons to tune into this game. A rematch of the national championship game. The trash talk. They don't hate each other, by the way. I saw Angel Reese said over the weekend after their Sweet 16 win, which is awesome, right? Because they shouldn't hate each other. They should just be competitive as hell, fiery as hell, and want to win. And that's what both of these ladies want. And it's going to create, in my opinion, this will be the game of the year in college basketball. Either side. This will be the game of the year. It's the most storyline-ridden game. As excited as I am for DJ Burns and Zach Edey to bully each other in the paint, this is the game of the year. This is must-see TV. This is must-watch television, and I will be watching this at the Great Dane on the east side of Madison tonight during the Great Dane Huddle.
So I have two questions for you with this game. First, what are the chances that Caitlin Clark goes for 40-plus in this game?
40-plus, I would say the odds are low, and here's why. I think you saw it in their Sweet 16 game, which, by the way, they pretty much dominated on. That was Saturday, right, against Colorado. They won by, I think it was 20 points or something like that. I watched a good chunk of that game. And what you saw in that win over Colorado is Clark was facilitating earlier, right? She was more finding her teammates, opening things up for herself rather than just running up the court and throwing up, some of the shots Steph Curry range that Caitlin Clark can make. Rather than doing that, it was facilitate early and then find her rhythm. And she did that. She scored 29 points still. I think you're going to see a similar strategy offensively from Iowa tonight, where Caitlin Clark is more of your Tyler Kolek piece early, right? Facilitate, find the open teammate, get an easy bucket, make that defense play you, truly, and then you can open the game up for yourself more as the score first option. So I think she probably scores over 25. Over 40, though? I mean, I will never say never when it comes to Caitlin Clark is the issue. She is unbelievable. I could sit here right now and tell you this is how it's going to happen, but Caitlin Clark's going to come out and hit 3 shots from the logo to kick off the game, and I wouldn't be shocked. I'm going to say under 40 points. Do you know the underdog fantasy line, what that is by chance? Over-under points for Caitlin Clark? I haven't looked at it.
No, I haven't looked at it either. I usually kind of do that stuff after work. That's kind of as I'm finishing up my day a little bit.
Sure.
So I didn't take a look at that. My other question, though, because I'm going to assume, if I had to guess, though, I would guess she's probably I'm going to say 29.5. Would be the number that I would guess that more or less would be at. My other question, though, is what are the chances that we get lucky and this game goes into overtime? Because I'm not going to want this game to end.
Yeah, no, I hope you're right. I don't really have a dog in this fight, is the fun part. And maybe I will throw some underdog action on it. But I don't really have a choice. I think I'd rather see Caitlin Clark get further because I would really like to see South Carolina, Iowa in the national championship game next week. I just think, best team, best player, that's what you want on your biggest stage. That's how I view it. So I'm probably rooting more for Iowa, but I'd be fine if this game went to 5 overtimes. They get a couple days off. They don't play again until Sunday. So, yeah, count me in. Count me in. I hope you're right. We'll see. I just think this is going to be a thriller. The way these teams have won in the tournament thus far, right? Seeing, like I said, Iowa beat Colorado, I think it was by 20 or 25 points, somewhere in there, on Saturday. That's not happening tonight against LSU, especially the way LSU has played in this tournament run. I'm very, very, very excited for this game. It is the game of the year, bar none, in all of college basketball. All right, it's time now for What Strouf Learned as we wrap up the show. You learn something new every day, as did I. And Hunter, as you've learned over the course of doing this show with me for over half a year now, I have an affinity for weird holidays, right? St. Patrick's Day, Groundhog's Day. Today, April 1st, of course, April Fool's Day. Did you have any idea about the origin of April Fool's Day until today, until what I'm about to tell you? Because I didn't.
No clue. Just assumed it was, it's April 1st. Let's have a holiday.
The exact origin of April Fool's Day actually isn't known. There's a thought that maybe in 1392, a book written, he wrote a phrase, since March began 32 days and 2, like 30 days and 2 ago. Somehow made it a joke, and then in 1508 a poet wrote about it, and then in 1686 John Aubrey called it Fool's Holy Day. I don't know what that means. Fools spelled with an ES, by the way, not FOOLS. So and then in 1698 several people were tricked into going to the Tower of London to see, quote, the lions washed, end quote. There was no lions there at the Tower of London.
They were lying?
They were lying. Indeed. So I just find it odd that there is no real origin of April Fools. But anyway, what's the best April Fool's prank you ever had done to you or you pulled off, Hunter? Any jump out to you? I only have one for me.
No, thing was, I wasn't really a big April Fool's prank person. I did, though, and this is actually a good story. Maybe you shouldn't have saved this for towards the end of the show, but I myself and some friends decided we wanted to TP the high school in Berlin.
Yeah.
So
I know this story, actually.
Yeah, we go to do that. Everything's going great. Everything's fine. All of a sudden, a police car comes whipping into the parking lot, and we all scatter. So I'm running down this alleyway that's in between Berlin's high school and the elementary school, and I can hear some keys jingling behind me, and then I hear the police officer start screaming, stop running. Used a few F-bombs in there as well. Threw his nightstick at my feet to try and trip me. Yes. And then I realized because Berlin's a small town, I had a feeling I knew which officer this was. This guy's an ex-Marine. And I'm even at 17, I am not outrunning this guy. So I'm just I need to get to grass. He's going to tackle me, and I don't want to do this on asphalt. So I'm just hoofing it to get to the grass. I get there. He full-on Ray Lewis tackles me from behind.
Whoa!
Just drives me into the ground. Zip ties my hands behind my back and is pushing my head into the dirt do you know who I am? Why would you run? Why were you running? And just screaming at me. And then the next morning in front of the whole school, basically, I had to go outside and clean up all the teepee. And that was not a good time, but that was April Fool's Day, and I learned my lesson.
I was going to tell a story about how when I was in elementary school, I just put a rubber band on the hose in my kitchen sink and got my mom wet. I didn't get my head pushed into dirt for that one. Man.
Yeah,
I didn't know you had a criminal background.
Yeah, I was naughty.
Why did he zip tie your hands? Because you didn't get detained or arrested, did you?
No, that guy just kind of had a power trip. He would hop fences to chase after kids who were TPing. It got a little out of hand. And yeah, that was not fun. It turns out it doesn't feel good either, getting zip tied.
No, I bet.
No, It hurts because it pulls on your shoulders too. You'd expect it to hurt your wrists.
Wow.
But my shoulders hurt. It was bad.
What Strouf learned, I work with a criminal. Unbelievable. Whew. Brewers opening day tomorrow. Elite 8 tonight in the women's college basketball tournament. Looking forward to reacting to all that coming up on Wednesday. We're back with you 12:30 on ESPN Madison's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. If you're with us, give us a like. Make sure you follow along. We're with you every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Except this Friday, I have a wedding. We'll talk more about that dynamic on Wednesday. about the wedding I am attending, Hunter. It's an interesting one. Can't wait to talk about it. We're back with you Wednesday at 12:30 on ESPN Madison's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok pages. And remember, if you missed any of the show, you want to catch up on it, you can find it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. This is a show we call Mr. Relevant. His name is Hunter Vaughn. I'm Alex Strouf. Back with you Wednesday. We'll talk to you then. Peace.